What is up, everyone? With 3.0 going live in Genshin Impact, we have 7 new reactions coming out related to Dendro, and for the first time ever, getting triple element reactions where we will be able to combo different elements into each other to create various elemental reactions. I'm going to go into detail with every single one of those new elemental reactions and talking about how each of them can work into each other. Now, right off the bat, most of the Dendro reactions are transformative reactions, which means that leveling up your characters, as always, is one of the most important things that you can do. Just like with Electrocharged, Swirl, the rest of them, that leveling up your characters to level 90 will increase the baseline that those reactions scale off of, so keep that in mind. All right, first up here, this is a good little chart showcasing all of the elemental reactions in Genshin Impact, but we are going to focus on the Dendro reactions here. Now, we will go from right to left, going through what all of the interactions are individually with Dendro, and then what are some of the combo interactions that you can do with Dendro with triple elements and things like that. Starting with Electro and Dendro, you're going to have 3 main elemental reactions, starting off with Quicken, which is going to be your primer reaction. Here, when either Dendro or Electro is applied first, and then vice versa, the other is applied, you will prime your target. You will see a little Electro debuff on the enemy that you are facing, and that is how you know you will have primed your target with Quicken. Now, from Quicken, you will either trigger Aggravate, which is a damage bonus to Electro damage, or Spread, which is a damage bonus to Dendro damage. People may be thinking this is the vaporize or this is the melt of the Dendro Electro. This is the buff that we've been waiting for and all that. Now, it is definitely a buff. However, Aggravate and Spread work a little bit differently than Vaporize or Melt. It's not a multiplicative reaction, but rather an additive reaction. Think kind of like Yunjin's amplification for normal attacks, where it gives you a set amount that is added onto your multipliers, whether that's, in this case, any of your Electro or any of your Dendro abilities, whether that's your elemental burst, skills, normal attacks if they're infused, or anything like that. And then that baseline number that gets added onto those multipliers can be multiplied by your crit damage, elemental damage bonuses, things like that. So elemental mastery will increase that baseline amount, or sets like 4-piece Thundering Fury will increase that baseline amount. But conversely, the extra amount that is added onto those things can be multiplied by those damage reactions. So Quicken and Spread will not be so good for doing big burst damage with your Electro abilities, like doing Raiden Shogun burst damage. Now I'll be able to, instead of hitting 1 million with her, I'll be able to hit 3 million because it's a multiplicative reaction. No, it's an additive reaction, so it'll still be a very strong damage boost to all teams that use Dendro and Electro together, but it will be focused more on characters that have fast reactors and no or low internal cooldowns, or multiple sources of internal cooldowns for causing elemental reactions. So characters like Lisa, like Fischl, they're going to be very, very good with the Aggravate reaction, because for Fischl, her C6 and her passive can trigger her C6 and her passive have separate ICDs and can trigger multiple elemental reactions. Her passive specifically off an internal cooldown, on top of her skill also being able to trigger on a standard ICD. Lisa is very good because her burst, skill, normal, and charge attack all have separate ICDs, so you will be able to trigger a lot of Aggravate reactions with Lisa. Now, moving on to Bloom, either Hydro or Dendro applied first. When the other is applied, you will create a small little seed, and that seed will be able to explode or be transformed. Now, focusing on the explosion part for right now, it seems like for the bloom seeds that there is a set amount of those seeds. What that exact number is, we're not exactly sure. Once it reaches the cap, I believe it might be around 6 seeds, or the duration of the seed expires, the bloom will explode. Now, when the bloom seed does explode, it does create a explosion in an area of effect with very minimal knockback or movement or anything like that, but does about the same damage as, for instance, Overload does with Electro and Pyro. So a nice little added bonus that it doesn't throw enemies all over the place like Overload does, but it is very solid in AoE situations, multi-target cleave, as you would expect. Now, burning is going to be Pyro and Dendro. You've already seen it in the game as default when you are fighting Dendro slimes with a Pyro character. It works the same now, though obviously it can be amplified with Elemental Mastery now. Now we can go on to the triple element reactions. Now these are Hyperbloom and Burgeon. Looking at Hyperbloom first, this is going to be a more single target focused build. So what you would do is you would use Hydro and Dendro as a primer for Hyperbloom, and in that situation you would be spawning these bloom seeds, and then instead of letting them expire naturally and explode in an area of effect, you can trigger Hyperbloom, which would cause the bloom to shoot out a little electro seed, and the seed will go off and hit a specific enemy, causing focused single target damage. So this is a really good, for instance, for taser teams. You could use this to increase, taser teams already have really good AoE damage. You can use these Hyperbloom reactions on top of the taser reactions to cause very good single target focused damage as well. Now the damage for these Hyperbloom seems to be about 1.5 times that of Overload as well, so a relatively solid damage boost in there. And going into Burgeon works very similar to Hyperbloom. However, what it does is it combines Hydro, Dendro, and Pyro, in that you create a bloom seed, and then when a Pyro is applied to the bloom seed, it causes Burgeon. What this does is it causes the bloom pod to instantly explode when it comes in contact with Pyro, and doing this, it will also do 1.5 times damage of Overload, but this damage will be in a much larger AoE and cause small stagger, but I think also not a knockback like Overload. So it still is going to be more impactful and beneficial than Overload as a reaction, because there is none of those big explosions that are throwing enemies all over the place. And on top of this, though, which you have to be careful of or bring a shielder for, is Burgeon will also deal damage to yourself. Albeit at a reduced amount of damage, I believe 95% of the damage that you deal to other people will be reduced. So only 5% of the damage that you deal will actually be dealt back to you. But however, if you're dealing, 20k per Burgeon and you pop 6 burgeoning seeds, right? That's still going to be like a 10k hit that you're going to take there, so you have to be a little bit careful with it. Or have a shielder in your team, characters like Toma or Zhongli, obviously, or Diona could be solid options in these teams to help protect you from burgeoning while also being able to deal a massive amount of AoE group damage, which sounds pretty good. Anyways, guys, that is all 7 new elemental reactions coming with Dendro explained. I hope this answers a lot of questions that people may have about Dendro. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. It does help out the channel quite a bit. Also, I will be live streaming on Twitch for the release of Sumeru, as well as many other days, giveaways, all that good stuff. So come hang out. I will see you there. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.